Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. We have covered a lot of sequels here on the 6M, and not every time, okay, but a lot of the times we've done sequels, part 2 tends to stand out just a little bit better, some cases a lot better than part 1. I'm not going to sit here and try to write them off the top of my head. If you follow the show, or if you follow sci-fi or comic book movies or what have you, you know what I'm talking about. But immediately example comes to mind is, Empire Strikes Back, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. You could argue the second Batman movie, the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogies we've done here. The Dark Knight, better than part 1. Again, the list goes on and on and on. Not here to rehash old stuff, but that's what I'm leading with. Now, I'm not saying that the movie we're talking about here today is better than the first one by leaps and bounds, but after just having watched it and not seen it in a while, man, in my opinion, this movie's better than the first one, and I thoroughly enjoyed the first one. And yes, we're talking about Blade 2. We just covered Blade 1, and I warned everybody on that show that I wasn't thrilled about covering Blade Trinity. Are we going to cover it? Well, at this point in my brain, I'm thinking, let's just complete this. I'll see what my co-host has to stay here today. He may completely disagree, and if he does, that's fine, because I could go either way. But for this film today, I really cannot wait to talk about this. This is going to be big, and man, am I looking forward to it. Let's talk about it, kids. Blade 2 is a 2002 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Blade, directed by Guillermo del Toro and written by David S. Goyer. It's a sequel to Blade from 1998, and it's the second installment in the Blade franchise, followed by, you guessed it, Blade Trinity. The film follows the human-vampire hybrid Blade in his continuing effort to protect humans from vampires, as he must join forces with an elite group of vampires to fight against mutant vampires who plan a global genocide of both vampire... Look, I enjoy doing this so much because how often in real life do you get to say, Blade must join forces with an elite group of vampires to fight against mutant vampires who plan a global genocide of both vampire and human races? That popped me. I'm sorry. I can't help it. I thought that was quite awesome. As we said, directed by Del Toro, written by David S. Goyer, of course, the great David S. Goyer. Blade, of course, created by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan, as we said in our review of Part 1, released March 22nd, 2002, one day after my birthday, kids. Total running time of 117 minutes. The budget for this film, $54 million. The box office, $155 million. And that is the lowdown on Blade 2. So, Phil, we hit Blade 1 in the previous episode. We're hitting Blade 2 today. We're in the month of October. So I guess it's a Halloween themed month, I suppose. I don't know. That wasn't intentional. I kicked this thing off, man, with talking about part 2 and how it ranks with part 1. In your opinion, is part 2 better than part 1 for this franchise?
I think it's a great sequel because it ramps up all of the action. It ramps up all of the stakes. And it does a lot more of the world building. And in that regard, I think it's better. I think the first one feels a bit more concise in terms of storytelling. But I mean, in terms of action and everything else, this one is the superior movie.
I agree with you. This outperformed the first movie as well. The budget for the first film was $45 million. Box office was $131.2. So this movie actually made more money. Dude, it felt like a sequel to me. Do you know what I mean? It felt polished. It just, I don't know, it didn't feel as gritty, I guess, as the first one. Did you get that sensation watching it too?
Yeah, I think that's really the biggest positive about this as a sequel is that it feels like a bigger movie. Like the world feels bigger, the action feels bigger. The threat feels bigger. It feels like everything is ramped up.
Yeah, I agree. Man, I don't want to get into it and bring everybody down, but after watching this and really, really enjoying it and enjoying the first one, man, what happened to that third film? Like, what in the world? What in the world went wrong, dude? Like, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but it just jumped into my head, man. It's crazy how they lost such a great amount of connection for these first two movies here.
Yeah, it's hard to make a good movie trilogy because a lot of times the studio will come in and money gets involved, especially if it's a successful movie. And once money's involved, then all of a sudden, there's more cooks in the kitchen. There's more things
Mm,
that people are trying to do. There's less of a established vision. Like some of the best trilogies have the same director throughout, and I think that kind of hurt the Blade trilogy that there's a different director for all three movies.
that's a good call. I mean, we talked about Norrington for the first film not having much of a resume. No disrespect to that guy. But dude, we go from him to Del Toro. I mean, this guy's a legend, Phil. Like, you should be so lucky to have him directing, your comic book film. I mean, what immediate differences could you see in this film stylistically due to Del Toro's influence?
I mean, this is definitely a Del Toro movie. And I think this is based on watching other Del Toro movies. I can see all of his style choices. Um, he, of course, has his penchant for creature creation, and you can see that in the design for the Reapers. You can see
Mm.
that in the design for a lot of the weapons and stuff. It's funny when I watch this movie now; it kind of feels like his. It kind of feels like his case study that he put out. Like, hey man, if you want to like let me direct this thing called Hellboy, I might be good at this because a lot of things that end up in Hellboy are in this movie.
It's true. Not the least of which is Ron Perlman.
Yeah, Ron Perlman is in it, of course. The villain, the main baddie for this movie, is also the main baddie for Hellboy 2.
Yeah. Very true. Very good. Look, by the way, you mentioned the Reapers. I can't wait to get into that because I love the Reapers, as disgusting as they are. But no, I think you're right. And kids, we're talking about what this guy's done. Kronos was his first film in 92. Mimic was in 97. The Devil's Backbone in 2001. Blade 2, 2002. Hellboy, 2004. Pan's Labyrinth in 2006. He directed Hellboy 2, The Golden Army in 2008. Pacific Rim in 2013. Crimson Peak in 2015. The Shape of Water in 2017. Nightmare Alley in 2021. Pinocchio in 2022. And Frankenstein coming up. We do not have a release date for that yet. And of course, he's done TV, Phil. The Strain, Wizards, Troll Hunters. So the guy's done a little bit of everything. But no, I agree with you. I think stylistically, there's a lot of stuff going on here that very much reminds me of Hellboy. And look, let's talk about the Reapers, man, because you mentioned them. That effect, we talked about the effects in the first film. There's moments of it being, oh, this is tough. Dude, the Reapers are flat out terrifying. Like, I didn't get taken out of it at all. Was there anything about the Reaper stuff that you're just shaking your head, or were you here for it?
No, I think the Reapers are a cool addition to the Blade mythos in these movies. I can't help but think like they have to be in some way influenced by the Nosferatu from the 2022 movie, because they
Mm.
look very similar with like the bald heads and the pointy ears. But yeah, just like that effect of their mouths opening and then like the tongue effect and everything, that that screams Del Toro. Like that, you can tell that's his design and like his ideas. The scene where we get a look of the inside of the body and inside of their mouths, it's like yeah, those are his kind of intricate designs.
Yeah, I agree with that. Man, we'll get into the plot twist here with these creatures or whatnot, but man, anyone ever listen to the show knows I'm not really a horror movie guy. It's just not my genre. So if this weren't a comic book film, I don't know that I would have seen it. I mean, I couldn't really call this horror anyway, but man, it's gross. And like this stuff could have been horror, like if spun a little bit differently. I just love the idea of, you know, if the first movie is straight humans versus vampires, you're going to have to come harder with the second film. I think it was a great choice, Phil, to go a little bit different than just humans versus vampires. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think because you not only ramped up the threat, but you also created a different dynamic between Blade and the vampires. We see more character development with him and the vampires later throughout the movie as well. And I thought that that was a good choice because it isn't just like this black and white relationship between him and the vampires anymore.
Yeah, that's true. And some characters in here that kind of surprised me. Well, most of them didn't, but the one really, really did. And man, we'll get into it because had that character lived, holy cow! Like Blade's future potentially changes, you know. But man, I can't wait to get into it. So look, let's talk about the man right off the bat. Wesley Snipes never looked better. I think he was great in the first one. I think he was just as good, if not better, in this one. The fight choreography, we praised it in the first one. I think it's just as good here. I actually think it's better here. And, you know, I don't know how much of his own stunts he did. I'm sure there's a stand in for the flippity flop stuff. I get it. But, like, I would have to believe, Phil, he's more than likely doing a lot of his own stunt work here. I think he is fantastic in this movie, man. I thoroughly enjoyed Snipes in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. He's fantastic in here. I think he ramped up the charisma as well. I think he's funnier in this movie. His
Yeah.
one-liners are funnier. It feels like they give him more of his personality to bring to the movie, and I think that
Mm,
that helps it. Um, like his back and forth with Reinhardt throughout this movie is great.
yeah.
Uh, some of his very deadpan one-liners are also very great. Can't say enough about Wesley Snipes, man. He's one of those like all-time great action movie stars.
It's like a comedian, Phil, right? Like a comedian has to have good timing. Dude, I believe you have to have good timing for action movies as well. Like your cadence, how to deliver the lines. If you're too far one way or the other, it's not real anymore. And like I think as an action guy, he completely knows how to carry himself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think he brings so many things to this. I mean, just like think of the first movie and him doing the fist bump and just how
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how cheesy that could have came off, but because it's Wesley Snipes and because he brings this style to everything he does, it works.
Yeah. He's just great. I can't get enough of him. So Whistler, when I saw the first one for the first time, I thought he's dead. I mean, I know he got attacked and whatnot, but Phil, I didn't leave that movie thinking he's been bitten and he's going to turn. I thought he's dead. Not only did they, nearly kill him, but that he killed himself. So, like, did you see it coming with him coming back as a vampire here, or at least not being dead?
Yeah, I assumed he was dead after the first movie, and that was one of those things about this movie where I was just kind of like, that's a bit convoluted. He's not dead, and he's been like being tortured by the vampires all this time, and then we find out there's a twist with even that later in the movie. Um, yeah, I didn't know what to make of that when I first saw it, but not mad because I love the Whistler character and I was glad to
Hmm.
see him back.
Dude, did it feel like to you almost like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't have killed him in the first movie. Ah, he's back. Do you know what I mean? That's what it really felt like to me here.
It kind of felt like one of those things where they might not have known how successful the first movie was going to be. And
Mm.
so when they started planning the second movie, they were like, hey, oh man, we killed that Whistler guy off. Maybe we can write a way to get him back in here. Let's get him back in.
I mean, I'm sorry. I swear to God, that's what it felt like. And I've seen this movie multiple times. It's not like I saw it for the first time today, but I truly felt like it's a do over. It's a gimme. That's what it
Mulligan.
is. Yes, it's a mulligan. Sorry about that. My bad, guys. It went in the water. My bad. I mean, dude, look, I'm okay with it. And plus, if you roast a comic book movie too much, you're going to be disappointed because it is just a comic book movie. But there were
Yeah.
moments of this where I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have killed him in the first movie.
Yeah, there are things here that are very much kind of nonsensical or very campy and cheesy, but it works for the movie that it is. It's Del Toro's version of camp, and it just works.
Yeah. How do you, by the way, I mentioned Raimi. How do you compare those two guys? What common ground do you think there is, or are they just two vastly different directors?
I think they're vastly different style wise, but I think they also understand filmmaking in a way. I think that they have a defined style to what they do. They know what they want to do. They know what their movie is, and they're not ashamed of it. And I think that that's a lot of times you get some of the best movies out of that because they're not afraid to just make the movie they want to make,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I get it. Yeah, and the studio trusts them because they got a track record.
Yeah, which I was reading, Raimi is in talks. I don't know if this is true. He's in talks to direct Doctor Strange 3, and I was just like, please just let him direct it.
Just let them direct it. What are we doing? Why are there talks, Phil?
Yeah.
Why, right?
Yeah, I'm a big Multiverse of Madness defender. I
Yeah.
know some people didn't like it, but I was a big fan of it. It's a definite Raimi film. It's Doctor Strange and a Raimi film. How can you not like it?
Yeah. Well, some people don't like it. Some people are freaking weird and just want to hate everything. Let's be honest. I don't get the hate. But yeah, look, I'm glad Whistler's back here. Although I will tell you that every second of this entire film, when the first time I saw it, he's going to turn. He's turning on him. Blade's going to have to kill him for real. I just knew it. I freaking knew it. But Phil, they somehow magically cured it with that stuff that she created for him in the first movie, I guess, combined with the work they'd already been doing, this anti-talk, this toxin or whatever,
Yeah,
this magic cure-all for being a vampire.
yeah.
That's some,
They
yeah,
basically hold it off until the third movie, right?
I think so. Yeah, dude, I have no, other than the third movie being crap, I have little to no recollection of what happens to Whistler in the third movie. As we said, kids, just hold on to that thought and we'll see if we want to talk about it. I haven't decided yet. We talked about this in the first movie. We recently lost Chris Christopherson. So rest in peace to him, of course, legend. And God, I just want to mention that today as we're doing this one. But I was very, very glad to see him back. He did have a replacement. And because I just tend to forget stuff, I totally forgot. This is Daryl Dixon, Norman Reedus himself as Scud. Scud, for God's sake. Dude, there's a quality about that guy that just, man, his comfort level on camera, that sounds weird. He just looks like he's in his element. And when he's cast in the right role, he just doesn't look like he's trying very hard. He just looks like he fits. Dude, I think he totally fit in this role here.
Yeah, I thought he fit as well. You could buy him in both roles as the sidekick or the new man in a van at the early parts of the movie,
Mm,
and you can buy him as kind of the conniving uh villain later in the movie that he turns out to be.
yeah. Did you see that coming?
I started to think certain things because it was certain things he was doing, but I think it was so well executed that I just had second guesses about him at one point. But the great thing that they did is they make us second guess Whistler throughout the movie, and so
Mm,
it kind of distracts you from the fact that he's gonna turn.
yeah. That was nice. That was a little sleight of hand
Yeah.
because Whistler disappeared from the rooftop.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, and he's the main one that keeps trying to get you to question Whistler as well.
yeah, for sure. I love him in this. I just think, and I love when he and Whistler eventually started getting along, even though he was a turncoat. I guess we all saw Phil when they'd finally captured them and he had his back turned to the situation. And then suddenly he's laughing and turning around. I'm like, why is he standing like that? Oh, that's right. He's the bad guy.
Yeah. Hey B.
Yeah. B.
Yeah, that he's got such a great delivery for a lot of lines. Even when he turns, it just works.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's so funny every time he's called. I don't know where the nickname Scud comes from, but it makes me think of the minions from VR Troopers. I don't know if you watched the show.
Oh, man. It's been a long time.
They were called Skugs, not Scuds, but it
Ah.
just sounds similar.
Yeah, I loved him here. I thought it was very good. Ron Perlman, as we said, is Dieter Reinhardt. and he's a member of the Blood Pack.
Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's main event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com.
I love how they had a name for the group, and when Blade gets the introduction to them, they're all like posed, like they're it's the cover of a heavy metal album. They're all posed. I'm like, does no one see that they're posed? It's so odd, man.
Yeah, there's many things again about this that are just cheesy comic book film stuff, and if you kind of look at it too long or overanalyze it, it's like, yeah, this is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But the Blood Pack are so cool. Every member has like its own thing. It's like a vampire GI Joe. They all have like their own personalities and like their own archetype or character trait. I mean, we got a crew of vampires with the legendary Donnie Yen. Like, how can you be mad at that?
Oh, dude. Explain to me why he didn't get more of a satisfying finale, that character.
Yeah, unfortunately at that time period, I don't know how well his English was. So, we had to
Yeah.
do the he's a mute vampire thing.
Sure.
But he does get some cool action stuff to do, but he doesn't get a lot of character development. It's just one of those things where if you know who he is, and
Sure.
the fact that he's attached to this movie, it's cool. But the real centerpiece of this, of course, is Rod Perlman as the leader of this group. Well, the kind of leader of the group, because the leader of the group is Blade. But their back and forth, like I said earlier, is so great. When he initially tries to roll up on Blade and he's doing the trick with the stake and he keeps slapping him in the face, like, come on, do it. So good. And then eventually put the bomb on the back of his head. And so we have this interplay with him and this bomb throughout the movie. It's so good. Their scene where they're in that club later and he's got the laser sight on his chest and he looks down and Blade is already pointing a gun at him. He doesn't even know it.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that Blade already knew that Scud had been turned. The guy's a vampire hunter. You don't think he could have smelled them all over you, by the way?
Yeah, I love that they never got one up on him. Even when they brought him in to explain the plan, and he was just like, they're gonna turn us. He said it from the very beginning. They're gonna turn us. We can't trust these people.
Yeah.
And then when they do think they got one up on him again by revealing Scud has been a part of their organization all the time, he's like, I already knew that.
Yeah.
Just like, this bomb's a dud. No, it's not.
And then plus when he shoots him, Christopherson's like, yeah, I'm just starting to like that kid. It's a shame. Barely reacted. He barely reacted.
Yeah, I loved everything about it. Blade saying it wasn't a bomb, and then of course Scud going, "Oh man."
Yeah. And that's how he goes out. Oh crap, That's wonderful. Let's see. The one I talked about earlier. This is Nissa Damaskinos. Say that fast 3 times. This is Leonor Varela. She is a Chilean-born actress, and she played the title role in the 1990 television film Cleopatra, and has done some other things as well. I thought for the bulk of this film, she was going to be the one to lead the group to turn on Blade and, woo him and get him to feel something for her, which he kind of freaking did. But then it turns out in the end, Phil, she doesn't really get redemption because she's still a bloodthirsty, murderous vampire. But she got what she had coming, I suppose. She at least does not want to totally betray Blade and kill him. But man, that scene on the rooftop with those 2 characters, man, that's a whole other thing right there that could have became something. And it kind of showed you, Phil, Blade, much like Batman, is completely alone in this war. There's really nobody. He might have people around him, but it's him doing it on his own. So I kind of like that. But what did you think about her in this movie here?
I thought the character was good. Sometimes her acting isn't the best. Sometimes her delivery of the lines is kind of flat. But I think the character is very good. I think the character straight away having this main megalomatic character behind everything that is grotesque and looks ugly. But of course, he has this daughter that is like his prized possession that is also very beautiful. That is comic book 101.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, I mean, you see straight away when she takes the mask off and Blade looks at her for the first time. It's like, oh, there's something there, because he's like he stops and stares a little bit longer than everybody else. And so, when the first time I saw it, of course, I was like, oh, they're building her up to be the love interest. And I think there's some very good scenes with her when he's talking to them, and then she walks in the other room with him and says, "Why do you talk to us like that? Like, why do you hate us so much?"
Mm.
And he's just like, "'Cause it's in my blood." And then she's just kind of like, "I never wanted any of this. Basically, I was born a vampire. I'm a pure blood." And so it almost makes him second guess everything he's always been doing. Like, I just hate all of these people off GP. I just hate you people. And and
Right.
she's just kind of like, "Well, I never did anything. I was born into this, and this is just who I've always been. I, you know, I did I didn't ask for any of this." And it kind of makes him look like, man, maybe I am being a little bit too hard on him. And then later on, he's just like, "Nope, you guys all gotta die."
Yeah. I was just playing. Nothing's good about y'all. I mean, he was right.
Yeah.
Essentially, he was right anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, he has some very sweet moments with her, like allowing her to feed on him in the sewer, to save her life, and then of course the climax that you're talking about at the top of the building, where he brings her out to see her first sunrise, and she dies. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, there you go. A very Black Panther moment. Can I say that? I just made that connection in my head.
Yeah, because yeah, it is. Now that I think about it.
Yeah. You know, we talked about and Boucher Wright as Dr. Karen Jensen in the first movie. I had the feeling about her that you have here about this actress, where I just kind of felt she was a little flat. I didn't view her as really being a love interest at all for Blade because they never really pursued that. But from the moment, like you said, she takes off that mask, you can see, sparks might be flying. Which, you can't keep your primary hero away from a romantic interest. I mean, eventually you got to introduce somebody to kind of keep it interesting, give some kind of hope, which I think he had.
Yeah.
Don't know what kind of woman he ended up dating. I don't know. I don't know, right? Like,
Well, he has the love interest in the Spider-Man animated series.
who was the love interest in the Spider-Man animated series?
Wasn't it the police officer that worked?
Was it?
Yeah.
Interesting. Haven't seen it in years. I used to watch it. Man, I watch it every Saturday. Actually, I was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was what I grew up with in the 80s. So it was him and Firestar and Iceman living in a condo for some reason in New York. I'm like, why are you? Like Bobby Drake he'd move like a football trophy and the walls would spin around and stuff, be like computers and whatnot. Like, why does Iceman need computers? Yeah. I don't know why Iceman would need computers. Who's he talking to?
I don't know why all of those comic book cartoons from that era all have that same kind of score and soundtrack where it has like the very dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Very, very dramatic. Very dramatic music. Oh, speaking of music, Phil, the music I think it's better in this movie than it was in the first one. So they're very much keeping with that vibe. The movie it's got a lot of the same tones. The music is crushing. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I think it's better than the first one.
More techno music for the vampire raves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the music is very similar to the first movie. Again, ramped up the budget, it seems like.
Yeah, and all right, the budget for the first film was $45 million. Okay, and the budget for the second film, $54 million. It only got $9 million more, Phil, and that first movie made a ton of money.
This movie looks more expensive, though.
It does. Maybe money went farther in 2002. I'm totally kidding. It didn't. So you would think that. You would think that as well. We also have Thomas Kretschmann as Eli Damaskinos. And if you saw a picture of the guy, he looks nothing like that old dude. No. An ancient vampire is obsessed with creating a superior race of dude. It would make sense, Phil, that we have like an emperor kind of character here. I mean, if vampires are immortal, this guy's probably been alive for centuries. I didn't bump into it too hard. The whole thing was a grand plan. It was all nonsense to just get Blade, which they got him, and in the process take down the forces on the other side, which is fine. Was he too outlandish for you? Do you think he fit? Was it a distraction? What do you think?
No, it was just like I was describing earlier. He feels like a Del Toro movie villain. He had all of the pastiche of that kind of style of movie. It was his prosthetics and his design for makeup that made sense. And I thought, yeah, if you're gonna have somebody that's behind this, that's like this big mustache twirling ancient vampire, that yeah, he would look kind of like ridiculous and grotesque.
Yeah, because, buddy, he sure does. This is why the Emperor keeps that cloak on his head. I'm just saying, because there's bad stuff happening there. I thought he was great. I can't say a lot about the guy's performance because honestly, it's just not to discount what he did, but it's kind of the villain of the week kind of vibe. But it's fine because I thought it was at least believable. So that's good. So we're talking about the Blood Pack here. We've got some connections here, not the least to other stuff we've done, Phil. Not the least of which is Donnie Yen, because we did Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've got a connection to Donnie Yen and something else that we've reviewed here. But I can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, if you're somehow not familiar with Donnie Yen, legendary martial artist, of course, the star of the Ip Man franchise, like we said, part of Rogue One, multiple other movies he's been a part of.
God, he's fantastic. Style, just God, he looks awesome. But we also have Matt Schulze here as Chupa. Matt Schulze was Wall Street in the Transporter movie. I forgot he was here. We've reviewed so much stuff, Phil, that we have things connecting to each other in all sorts of weird ways. So yeah, those guys are here. Also part of the Blood Pack. We have Tony Curran as Priest. Priest doesn't make it out too well, even after their first little adventure together. But he's done some stuff. He was in Thor: The Dark World as Boar, in the second season of Daredevil as Fan Cooley. So he's done some Marvel stuff along the way. That's pretty cool. And he's done an Underworld film. He's done some Doctor Who. He's been in Roots. He's been in Outlaw King. Yeah, busy, a working actor, Scottish born, actually. We also have Marit Vel Kyle as Verlaine. She doesn't fare too well here as well because she's attempting to get away from the big Thor dude with the hammer. I think his name was like Hammer or something. I mean, what do you think about the Blood Pack? I know we made fun of them, they're posing and whatnot, but again, Phil, it at least it's different. At least it's not one vampire. At least it's this team that they've put together, and they put them together, Phil, to kill Blade 2 years ago. Yeah. So they've been training and working together, living together for 2 years. Then they're told, nah, you got to help him. Yes. I really like that.
Yeah, I like the Blood Pack a lot. I thought that they were a great addition to this movie. I thought it made all the sense in the world for the vampires to get tired of just being hunted by this guy and come up with a group of specialists to try and kill him. And, you know, in some other world, they would have been just like the main threat of this movie. But when you add the other stuff to it and add the Reapers and go, okay, no, not just that they're after Blade. They have to team up with Blade, and Blade's going to lead them. Blade's leading like this cool group of vampires. That adds an even better dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, I kind of thought, man, this maybe be a good idea to have guys that work as a team with Blade. Maybe we'll see that one day. And then we got it. And I'm like, oh, God, what was I thinking?
Use it. Use it.
Yes. Oh, God. Yeah, hey, all right. But again, no law says we got to do that third movie, but we're probably going to do that third movie. By the way, this Blood Pack thing, the one Thor dude we were talking about, that's Daz Crawford as Lighthammer. Lighthammer is his name.
Very, very G.I. Joe-esque team of vampires that all have like ridiculous names that are like somehow linked to their weapon of choice. Comic books, guys.
Comic books, yeah. When he's introducing them, or like Blade's getting introduced to them, you know what it made me think of? it made me think of White Goodman in Dodgeball introducing his players.
Laser.
Blazer. Yeah. Oh my God. Was my fitness consigliere, Michelle, right?
What a great movie.
Oh, it is. Great
we,
movie.
We got a little bit of that in this movie when Nisa takes off her mask and all of a sudden you hear in the background, Lady in Red.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, dude, don't think I'm losing my. We've done Dodgeball, haven't we?
I don't remember.
Jesus Christ, man. This is what happens when you record as much as we record. We have not done Dodgeball on the 6M. I don't know what happened. There have been multiple times where I'm like, yeah, we can't do that. We've done it. And I go, look, we haven't done it. Or I'll have the idea of, hey, we should do this. And I'll go check. There it is. We did it 2 years ago. I'm like, great. Oh, look, I say that to say this. Expect a Dodgeball episode at some point, folks.
Yeah.
It's just fair warning.
What a great movie. Talk about a movie that knows exactly what it is and doesn't try to be anything else. Just a completely stupid movie, but it's so funny.
Completely asinine, like Tropic Thunder. It's the same thing. It's just, like you said, it knows what it is, for sure. Well, we haven't talked about the primary heavy, Luke Goss as Jared Nomak. If you see this guy's picture, this is a handsome son of a gun here, buddy. And he's done a lot of stuff here, too. He was in Hellboy 2. Boy, there's a small world, I guess.
That's right. He's Prince Nuada.
He's done some other stuff, too. And let's see what else. One Night with the King. Tekken.
I don't think I've ever seen a Tekken movie.
No, I haven't either. Yeah.
Yeah, video game movies are very hit or miss.
Oh, totally for sure. He's Patient Zero here, carrying the Reaper virus. I think he looks fantastic. Much like Deacon Frost, I believe they nailed the villain. I can complain about the Blood Pack stuff because it's a little cornball and goofy at times. There's nothing goofy about Jared. This guy, this Nomad guy, dude, he is he's a bad dude. And like, he's completely believable. As much as the effects are out of this world sci-fi stuff, I love this guy, man. I think he's a great freaking villain, dude. I love everything about him.
Yeah, I love the idea of him being the patient zero, like you said, that starts this pandemic of an even worse virus because, again, the Blade movies treat vampires as like their virus. And the Reapers are an even worse version of this virus. And so I love the idea initially in this movie that he shows up and he looks like this disheveled, sick guy that is just going from place to place carrying this virus everywhere. But then by about the midpoint of the movie, he's down in the sewer with like legions of these Reapers, and it's just incredibly creepy.
God, it so is. They all look alike because I guess the virus replicates and it's the same, it's like the same strain or something. But like the replicants, I guess they're not as strong as the original. I forget how it was they explained it. I think he's great. I just think it's such a different thing than Blade and the vampires total. I mean, look, we all knew something funky was going to happen with Blade working with vampires. Did you at all, when you first saw this movie, if you can remember this, did you at all see, oh, I think I'm putting it together, this Vampire King dude, he's behind it and it's all a scam? Did you see that far ahead?
I didn't, but when you look at these two characters, I'm now looking at it, it's like, oh, wait a minute. They look similar. And there's other things that like link them, like to start the movie. Nomak goes in and it seems like he's trying to find something early in the movie. And then when you tie that to later in the movie, it's okay, he's trying to find out how to get back to his creators. That's what he was doing early in the movie. So yeah, I didn't pick up on it the first time I saw it, but then when you look at it again and you piece other things together, it's like, yeah, okay. I probably should have seen this coming.
Dude, and look, Goss is so good in that scene where he's down in the sewers and they're strapping him or trying to get him to that table, I guess, strap him in, that I thought, wait a minute, was this how he got infected? Because I was kind of sucked into his performance, man. I'd forgotten. Then like, oh, wait a minute. No, he kills everybody there.
Yes.
So, or turns them, I guess, whatever. It's great. It's great. I was here for it. I freaking loved it, man. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. We also had to mention, we talked about I compared him to Ike Clanton from Tombstone, because in the first movie, we had Donald Logue as Quinn, who just, man, this guy needs to be killed. He's going to have to be killed at some point, because, man, he sucks. And then we've got another one here, Phil, Santiago Segura as Rush. And Blade gets him in the end, spoiler alert.
Yes.
But again, Phil, I kind of hope this guy lives. I kind of like him. You know?
Yeah, the familiar characters in this movie. I love that with every movie that they make them even more sniveling. It's just kind of like, yeah, what kind of person would side with the vampires? And we get the main minion that's going around with our main mustache twirling bad guy, and he's just like, "Oh, you're familiar." No, he goes, "You're not a vampire." He's like, "Worse, a lawyer."
Yeah. That's great. That's a great line. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. The whole familiar stuff, and I love that idea. That is also we got to mention Danny John Jules as Assad. And his face is probably familiar to you kids. He's been in a lot of stuff as well. So he's a British-born actor, singer, and dancer. So if you're across the pond in the UK, you may know his work already. But yeah, I'm with you. The whole familiar stuff, it's a nice touch. And I think it just adds layers to the story, actually. So I'm here for that as well. And by the way, the lawyer, as we talked about, is Carol Roden. He's a Czech actor. And guess what? He was in Hellboy and The Bourne Supremacy. And he's done voice work in Grand Theft Auto 4. There you go.
Man, this whole movie, he was putting together his case, and he brought this to somebody like, "Hey, man, that Mike Mignola guy, he's made some cool stuff. Let's look at this over here."
Yeah, let me do it. Here's my resume. It looks pretty good. Yeah. Well, we talked about how we feel about part 2. Wesley Snipes is on the record as saying this is his personal favorite Blade movie. So there's something there to talk about.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. This thing got a little racist in the beginning. A little racist. And it's the scene where Reinhardt, who, by the way, this character is based on a neo-Nazi.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Asks if Blade if he can blush. Dude, get this. I didn't know this. This is based on a real incident that Wesley Snipes experienced. And he requested this be inserted into the movie to add to the antagonism between the characters.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I mean,
yeah.
It adds to some of the tension between them, but I think that also makes his dynamic with Reinhardt so cool. Like, he never really loses his cool with Reinhardt, and he's doing all this stuff, and he's just kind of like, no. I'm in control here. You think you are, but I'm in control. And even then, when he thinks he flips it on him and Scud turns on him and he's like, haha, you thought you were in control all this time. And it's like, no. I'm still in control.
Yeah. That was wonderful. Yeah. Blade counted on that happening the way it happened.
Yeah. At every point where he thinks he's got one up on him, Blade is just kind of like, okay. When he tries to fight him with his own sword, he's just like, nah.
Look, I'm glad he killed him. But as a comic book fan, you got to accept the fact that he cut him completely in half through dense bone and everything else. It's fine, right?
Come on. He just did it very fast. Very
fast
swipe with the sword, and it just somehow worked. He just cut him completely in half. And it just worked.
I did see a video to support your claim a couple weeks back where there's these martial arts guys and they've got a katana and each one is trying to hack their way through. I don't know what this is. And they're all getting about halfway through it. And they show the last guy, and the caption is something to the effect of, it's not about strength, it's about, precision, it's about style, it's about form. And he gets all the way through it with one stroke.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, maybe that's what Blade did. I'm just, we'll give him some credit here. Plus, he's pretty strong and stuff. By the way, Donnie Yen is playing Snowman in this movie. We praise the fight choreography. There's good reason for that, Phil. He is the fight choreographer for this movie.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. But that makes
Fantastic.
sense because the choreography for this movie is incredible.
So good. This is actually, by the way, kids, it's the only movie in the Blade trilogy that used its original written ending. The first Blade and Blade Trinity went through reshoots to improve and or replace the original climaxes. This is the only one that kept the original ending.
Oh, so they kept all that stuff with Dracula and Blade 3 and were like, oh, well, nah, let's maybe refilm that. And they still ended up with that.
They still ended up with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe one of those other endings I should have kept, I suspect. Snipes, not always available for each day of filming for this movie, which came out in 2002. He starred in 3 other films in this year, aside from Blade 2. So instead of waiting for Wesley to become available, the crew shot another actor who was not Wesley's stunt double for scenes where it was not necessary to see Wesley's face. The first scene being where Blade, Scud, and Nisa are riding in the helicopter to meet Damaskinos. The second was after Nisa performed an autopsy on the dead Reaper and confronts Blade in his quarters about his attitude toward the Blood Pack. That's a different actor. So
Didn't know that. Didn't notice.
Didn't even notice. That dude must look cool just like Snipes does. By the way, a little nugget about Reinhardt. He never took his sunglasses off throughout the entire film. By the way, Phil, you were correct in your assumption about the Nosferatu. Link, the look of Damaskinos, is based off Nosferatu, and the idea of his skin looking old like marble. The look for Nomak and the Reapers were based off numerous incarnations of drawings by Del Toro and concept artists, were primarily based off the mutants from Beneath the Planet of the Apes in 1970.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Here's something I didn't know. Over 30 cast members of the cast and crew, were temporarily blinded by the misuse of UV lights in the vampire autopsy scene. So yeah, it got dangerous here, kids. What can I tell you? Well, there's your cast, kids. And we've talked about the plot. We talked about the blood pack. Still weird. I'm sorry. It's just weird. It's fine. But yeah, look, New Line Cinema, of course, also did Hellboy, Phil. Go figure. And since the first movie made as much money as it did, was as successful as it was, of course, New Line and Marvel said, all right, we're definitely doing a part 2. Once again, Phil, David S. Goyer, well, first of all, was the director, I think, in the first film. Maybe Goyer did too. But they wanted Morbius. Marvel wanted to keep Morbius for a franchise of his own.
Yeah. Well, how did that turn out?
I don't know. I'm not sure. How did that turn out? Wow. Yikes. Well, hey, years later, Marvel got what they wanted. We didn't get what we wanted, but I guess, I don't know. Maybe they didn't get what they wanted either. I don't know. But hey, looking back, things you could do differently. Goyer compared this story to The Dirty Dozen, which I'm a fan of The Dirty Dozen. I can absolutely see that. You're putting together these guys and they don't always get along and they're on this mission and probably none of them are going to make it back alive. So I can kind of see that. But Del Toro was hired to direct Blade 2 by New Line Cinema production president because Stephen Norrington from the first movie turned down the offer to direct the sequel. So Phil, had Norrington directed, we still would have probably gotten a very serviceable film that probably still would have been a hit, but it would not have been this film. Do you know what I mean? It would have been different, of course.
Yeah, I think it would have been a very different film because, again, a big part of what makes this movie what it is Del Toro's style.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why he was brought in for his style and, quote, dark sensibilities. I don't even know what that means. Am I goth? What does that mean exactly? I mean, I get it, but Phil, it kind of feels like they just had the right creative team behind the scenes, honestly. I think that's what we're really talking about here.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they came into this with a vision for the movie, and it worked out very well for them.
Mm. And Del Toro, to his credit, and back to what you said just now about it's a very different film without him. Del Toro was supposedly tired of the romantic concept of vampires being tortured Victorian heroes and wanted vampires to be scary again. He chose not to alter the script too much from the ideas created by Goyer and Snipes. He said, quote, I wanted the movie to have a feeling of both a comic book and Japanese animation. I resurrected those sources and viewed them again. I dissected most of the dailies from the first movie. I literally grabbed about 4 boxes of tapes and one by one saw every single tape from beginning to end until I perfectly understood where the language of the first film came from. I studied the style of the first one, and I think Norton used a tremendous narrative style. His work is very elegant, end quote. Phil, Del Toro is a star director at this point. I think, well, if he's not, he's on his way to being one. He could have just said, it's my film, I'll do what I want. For him to pay that much attention to the first one and just try to expand on it, to me, dude, that's a classy move. That's a guy that wants to do right by the story.
Yeah, and I think that is a big part of why this movie works so well is that it doesn't feel like it's its own movie. I feel like he tries to come in and add layers to what was already created.
Yeah, you're right. It does not feel like it completely reinvents the wheel here. By the way, did you catch that Scud is wearing a t-shirt with the logo of the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense?
I did not, but again, I keep saying,
Tell you, man, this whole thing's been set up. We've been set up.
Del Toro came in there with this entire idea of, hey, making this Blade movie sounds fun, but what I really want to do is this Hellboy thing.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, hey, he got what he wanted. Get this. We praise Goyer, but supposedly Del Toro doesn't have a lot of great things to say about him. And he has pointed out groan-inducing dialogue in the DVD commentary, though he admits that such bluntly expository lines as, now you've got an explosive device stuck to the back of your head, are beautiful in a way. He also points out several CGI shots that he hates,
Yes.
most notably the final sequence of Blade's duel with Nisa against the Godlights.
Yes. There are bits of that from this movie that have not aged great. And there are things like that in a lot of Goyer movies. I think Goyer has a great resume. He's been a part of some fantastic films. But yeah, sometimes it's a little bit too on the nose.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But you know, it's a comic book too. Like, where do you draw the line, Phil? How do you know if you're going too far, if you're not going far enough?
Well, the thing that makes that funny is that Goyer, a big part of his resume is adding realism to these things. And so it seems like he wants to, in some ways, elevate the comic book material and make it something that can be taken seriously. But he also does things where it's just like, all right, how can you take that serious though?
Yeah, that's true.
But it just goes back into what we were talking about when we talked about the Dark Knight trilogy and how at the end of the day, these things are genre films. Like there's only so much you can do to it to try to elevate it and make it into this high art. At the end of the day, it's still a genre film.
Yeah, that's true. It is. So let's talk a little bit here about the House of Pain. It's the church. So the fight with Nomak. Again, now Phil, you're gonna have to go back and watch this again. I am too. Check this out. The stained glass window is a replica of Doctor Strange's medallion, the Eye of Agamotto.
I didn't notice that.
Del Toro is a fan of the character and had expressed interest a few years after this in developing a Doctor Strange movie with Neil Gaiman, but the project was rejected by Marvel. Can you imagine?
Wow. Why hasn't he been on tap to direct a Doctor Strange movie at this point? He also is one of those guys who I think would fit perfectly with that world, like the mysticism and the big characters and stuff. I think he would have ran with that.
I agree. I have no idea what the answer is to that question.
But yeah, not surprising that guys that enjoy doing horror did pretty good with Doctor Strange because both directors, I believe, have directed horror films.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the House of Pain, this is a good one. Pop icon Michael Jackson was going to originally have a cameo in the House of Pain sequence as a vampire pimp.
Wait.
Yeah, I know.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. There's so many things wrong with that description. Like,
I'm glad we didn't get that. We didn't need
Jesus. Vampire pimp. Nisa encounters him as she searches the upstairs hall. Jackson supposedly had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts, and the part was played by a Czech actor. The sequence was ultimately cut out entirely for pacing reasons. I don't know. In my head, I'm thinking, like, do we want Michael Jackson playing a pimp? And number two, we're going to offer this. I mean, the African American, we're going to, what? Like, dude, there's so much stuff wrong with that.
Yeah,
it's just a role. I get it. But still.
I don't think we needed that. That's cool.
I don't think we needed that. Stuff you find out when you start reviewing a film. I had no idea.
You just got all this stuff happening in this place, and you've got Michael Jackson somehow in here.
Just there.
Pimp. And then at some point, like all of the henchmen in like their SWAT gear, they all gather behind him and they start doing a dance choreography to the Dangerous video.
You know what I'm picturing in my head is Chappelle as that pimp character from Chappelle's show. I wanted to see Michael in that little bolo hat and the
the League of the Player Haters.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. And Chappelle doing that voice when he spoke. I'd love that voice, man. It's so good. Oh my God. All right, fine. Now I want to see it. Great. And it didn't happen.
There's a Diddy joke in those that I think of all the time that's so funny. He's got dolphin teeth. He's got very little teeth. Dolphin teeth.
We can make jokes about Diddy now. It's all right, you know. So
no, that joke was hilarious at the time. It's even funnier now.
You're like, no, I laughed then. What's the problem? Yeah. Speaking of the Reapers, if the Reapers look familiar to kids, maybe there's a good reason for that, because it perhaps served as inspiration for Del Toro's vampire series, The Strain, in 2014. It's actually the opposite that is true. Del Toro had originally conceptualized the Strigoi, which are the vampire antagonists in The Strain, which I could have mispronounced, many years prior to the creation of Blade 2. He utilized his own original concept and changed certain aspects about it for Blade 2 so that it would still stand somewhat independently of his original work. And by the way, the name Chupa for the character from Transporter, when I first heard it, I thought Chupacabra. It absolutely means Chupacabra because chupa comes from the Spanish word chupar, which means to suck.
Yeah.
Chupacabras are sucker of goats. By the way, I think I ever knew that Chupacabra translated is sucker of goats.
A Chupacabra. I always think of the Dexter's Lab episode.
Yes. Oh my God. I forgot about that. I love Dexter's Lab. Jesus Christ. It's so good. It is so good. That's one of the best pieces of animation I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So
it's
good.
Just endless things from that show that I think of all the time. And I reference at like the most oddest time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mandark.
Mandark. I was just going to say Mandark. Yeah.
Mandark's laugh and just so many things he does. Like when he's eating, he does it in the same cadence as laugh. Choo choo choo, choo 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 choo.
Wasn't there a sequence when he just the camera kept cutting from one sequence to another, and he's still just holding that pose, laughing like he's in the shower, he's at the dinner table, and he's still holding the pose, doing the laugh.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Oh man. Yeah. The Dexter's Lab movie, that they did at one point, where it's like Dexter's traveling in time, and at every point Mandark is like this villain in his life. It's so great. What a great show.
Great show. Give that to Del Toro too. Let's get this guy busy. What are we doing now? I don't know. This Frankenstein thing he's got coming out. To be announced on that. So we'll see. But I wonder what direction he's going to take that in. Part of me says we've seen enough Frankenstein stuff, but I don't know. In Del Toro's hands, maybe it'll be awesome.
Yeah, maybe so. Can't be any weirder than that Frankenstein we got in the Van Helsing movie.
Well, that's fair. This is for Netflix, by the way. And we shall see, kids. By the way, if you could go back in time in 1818 and tell Mary Shelley, hi, Miss Shelley, name's Tom, big fan. This book that you're working on is going to outlive your entire family. And generations from now, people will still be talking about it and still be producing works of art based on it. And like, can you imagine? Like, dude, as a creator, you would hope that you could create something that somebody would remember after you're gone, if only for something very small. And like some of these creators have left behind amazing pieces of literature that just stand the test of time, man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's wild to think about.
It is. Didn't mean to get all serious on you there, kids, but sometimes I think about Miss Shelley. I really do. I just think, go back and ask Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, or ask him, how far you think you get with this Sherlock Holmes stuff? It's whatever. It's fine. I enjoy writing. You know what I mean? Like, no. Let me explain to you something, sir. Like, far after you're gone, far after your great grandchildren. You know what I mean? Like this, for generations, this will live on. It's mind blowing to me. Yeah. Mind blowing.
At some point, just bring him a recording of the theme song from Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. He's just probably gonna be confused by the whole thing. Like, what is this?
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. Well, I think this movie has everything, kids. It's got a great cast. The story's really good. Some of the effects, but the effects are much better than the first one. You can just tell the natural evolution of special effects in Hollywood. It's just getting better and better and better as these movies go on. And then there was Blade Trinity. So, is there anything, Phil, that doesn't work for you in this movie? Are you good with everything? Is there anything looking back on that stands out to you? Does it flow well? What you think?
I think it flows well. I think the story is a little convoluted at times, but it works. The final fight is it's good. I think the action is great, but there are bits of it where the CGI looks very, very not good. And I mean, I think we look past it because at this point, we're in because the movie is so good up to this point. But the final fight between Blade and Nomak, I wish there was more of the practical choreography that we enjoyed throughout the rest of the movie. And I get we're supposed to be seeing this larger than life movie where these are two super powered like Daywalkers, and it's supposed to be bigger in scale than other fights, but at times it does look a little cheesy.
Yeah, there's moments. I get you. Yeah, I was into it though. Yeah.
But yeah, it's still a very good fight. I think all the action and the climax in the movie are still very good.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't know how much in detail we got about this, and I don't know what your theory is. Why did they keep Whistler alive? Was there a great explanation provided? Because I don't remember one.
Not really.
If you know that he's got such a connection to Blade, unless the goal is to capture Blade, why in the world would you keep his best friend alive?
Are you talking about early in the movie where he comes and rescues him? Or are you talking about later in the movie? Early in the movie, the explanation is that they kept him alive as a way to trick Blade later on. That was their way of getting him in and then bringing the blood pack in and using him later out. That was their way. That was their pawn that they had against Blade the whole time, is that they had Whistler. Now, again, that's a bit convoluted when you piece these things together, but that's the explanation, is that, it was always our plan to kind of hold him over your head. I mean, they even mentioned it at the point where Reinhardt tries to kill Whistler when he has him alone, because he's just like, well, you're his, look at him, this is your biggest weakness, because you still care about this guy. Scott references it as well.
I mean, I guess that's fine, but like, what if it accidentally died? What if Blade got hit by a bus? I don't know. It just seems like whatever happens, yeah, okay.
It does rely on a lot of happenstance.
Yeah.
But again, comic book movies. Because we're supposed to believe, like, oh well, let's shelve this guy that has been a part of killing hundreds of us, and let's put him in this tank and preserve him all this time, so that we can entice our greatest enemy to come work with us at some point. Or you could just kill him. It's cool. I don't know.
Yeah, and like I almost bumped into this until I realized, okay, I get it now. Like they had Blade in the inner chamber right there. They had him with a healthy blood pack team around him, and he had no help. But they had him only to send him out on this mission to get some of the team killed in an effort to, I guess, kill some of Nomac's dudes. But like, even that is flimsy to me, Phil. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's
I
a
don't know.
very comic book villain scheme. But I guess their way of looking at it is, oh, well, I can kill two birds with one stone here. If I
Right.
sent him out there with the blood pack to go up against Nomak, maybe all of them will end up killing each other. Because I'm trying to get Nomak out of the way, but in the process of trying to get Nomak out of the way, maybe he gets Blade out of the way for me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fine. I guess it's fine. It's a comic book. What am I getting mad for? I'm gonna get mad. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everything about it. The fact that he's never just like, hey, I created this guy. No, I was just the virus evolved. And I
Yeah.
mean, even because again, the first time I watched it, I didn't think about any of this. But when you watch it multiple times, it's like, well, wait a minute. What out of all of this time period of vampires existing from hundreds and hundreds of years, why now specifically did it evolve and evolve at such a rapid rate? It doesn't make sense. And I think if Blade thought about that long enough, it's like, wait a minute, that makes sense.
Yeah, it'd be great if during one of these freaking movies, the character said, well, hold on. Let me get this straight, right? But that's not going to happen because, it takes everybody out of the story. Yeah, well, again, if I bump too hard into it, I'll bump my head and crack it open, but it's fine. Like, again, it's a comic book film, but I do like this. For me personally, I enjoy this one more than I enjoyed part one. So,
Yeah.
Well, kids, there you have it. There's our review of Blade 2. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I think we covered everything here for the most part. A lot of other stuff you can go find online if you want some more trivia and facts about it and whatnot. If you'd like to look it up, of course. And look, where do we stand right now on this Blade Trinity thing? Are you up for part 3, or you think we're just
Sure, why not?
dealer's choice? Why not? Well, God, I can answer that right now.
You don't want to get into Triple H as a vampire with platinum grill and like Pomeranians with that are vampires as well. Like, no.
Oh God, it's going to be such a bad movie. It was such a bad movie. But yeah. And dude, Snipes did not get along with anybody, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's referenced in the Deadpool movie. They make
It
a joke
is.
about it.
I'm glad everybody's playing nice now, but Buddy at the time, he was not a happy camper.
Yeah.
Not a happy camper. Well, look, kids, there's your movie. And I guess we're doing the freaking third one because, I'm a masochist. Here's what I'll tell you. As bad as that movie is, you think about what could have happened here. The original script contained a sex scene between Blade and Nisa, and Tim Curry was considered for Damaskinos. I love Tim Curry, but Phil, I don't know that role required theatricality. I think the way it was played was just fine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, one of the greatest voices in all the cinema. I think that it could have worked, but I don't know that we needed it.
Exactly, and I don't think I need to see Blade getting busy with a vampire. I just don't.
Nah, I don't think we needed it. I think just what we got was elegant enough. I think just all of the implications were good enough. We didn't need this to turn into like one of those like late 90s, mid 2000s sex scenes. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't need that at all. I mean, if you're not going to give me Michael Jackson as a vampire pimp, then I don't want to see Blade getting busy.
Can't believe that was on the board at one point.
Yes. Hey, I just remember that Snipes and Jackson have a connection too.
Yeah, the bad video.
Yes, I'm telling you, could have worked. And as the vampire pimp, Michael Jackson.
Yeah, they should have just had him in like the hoodie and everything from the bad video as one of the people that were turning into the Reapers and just never spoke about it again.
Never spoke about it again. Yes. Hey, man. Back off, man. Back off.
You ain't bad.
Man, I think the best, instead of it's, hey, man, you ain't dead. You ain't dead, man. Oh, sorry, that's bad. I think the best that thing that Weird Al's done in terms of the Michael Jackson stuff was the Fat video. That Fat video is fantastic. I'm getting off track. And those characters, he pulls out the sandwich. He said, hey, man, ding dong, man. Ding dong, man. Yo, right? Like they're pulling food out, trying to give it to him. Love it. I just love it. Well, before we go into a Weird Al retrospective here, Phil, let me get your last word on Blade 2.
I think this is a very fun movie. It is a Del Toro movie through and through. I think it ramps up all of the things that we enjoy about the first movie in the best ways possible. There's a bit of cheese here, and there's some narrative things that don't work nearly as well. But if you're here to think about those things and not just Blade killing vampires and great special effects, then you're in the wrong place.
Couldn't have said it better. If you're here for anything else other than seeing Blade kill dudes, then you've come to the wrong party. Yeah, for sure. Couldn't have said it better. Well, kids, there you have it. There's Blade 2. Buckle up, folks, because I suppose Blade 3 is coming. And then after that, look, I said earlier, we haven't done Dodgeball yet, so always stuff to do here. That's why this podcast never ends. I'm going to be 90 doing this. I'll be 90 doing this. I promise you. You're going to be propping me up behind the desk. As long as I can get words out and, got something to talk about. There's always something to talk about. That was the goal of the 6M to begin with. Never run out of topics. So there you have it, folks. Thanks as always for hanging out. And thanks for supporting the show. And keep your eyes open for the next episode. Until meantime, that is Blade 2. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.